Hey guys, it's Erica. Time for your Tuesday morning preview for what's happening this week in yoga class. This week we're going to be working on inner thighs, so I'm widening the legs, coming towards a nice wide straddle, and uppavista, konasana, and badha konasana, and all sorts of things that can benefit from that. And I'm even wearing orange to support this second chakra work. And it's Valentine's Day in a few days, so get to work on the hips and all the emotions and the associated Valentine's Day desires and sensations that come up from there. So we're going to start in downward dog. And so as usual, this is partway through the class after we've done all the warm-up. So we're going to do a nice vigorous movement here where we shift the weight forward out over the hands, come up onto the toes, bend the knees, and then you're going to look to the outsides of your hands because that's where your feet are going to land. So sinking the hips down and then popping them up, bringing the feet just outside the hands, dropping the hips, lifting the arms up, taking the low ribs back so there's no arch in the back, and then pressing up to standing, coming back down, dropping the hands, and popping back to down dog. We'll do that again, shifting the weight forward, coming up onto the toes, bending the knees, hop the hands forward, reach the hands up. Make sure you're not rolling onto the outside edges of your feet. That's a tendency here. Really press into the big toe mounds and the heels as you lift up. Sink your hips down to knee height. Bring the arms forward, the torso forward. Don't rest on the thighs, but be in between the thighs. Keep the hips nice and low. Reach the spine forward, and again, lift those little ribs. And then lower the hands down, hop back into downward dog. Even here, taking the low ribs up towards the sky. That's what I always have to remember to do for my body, my tendencies. And then we're going to step that right foot forward into a lunge. Turn both toes to the left. Make sure your toes are equal distance from the long edge of your mat. Lengthen your spine here. Bring the hands flat to the floor, look forward, and then look up. Take your tailbone up a little bit. Take the upper back into a back bend. See if you can see the ceiling. And then exhale to fold. Walk your hands back in between your feet. Take a breath. Take another breath. And then walk the hands forward under the shoulders. Step your feet about 1 foot width each apart to come a little bit wider. And then turn the left foot so the toes face out, 45 degrees. Bend into that left knee. Have the thigh bone, the femur, going the same direction as the foot. That'll keep your knee in alignment and not put any weird twisting in the knee. Take the low ribs up towards the sky. Make sure there's even a little bit of a rounding in the back, no arching in the back. And then bring your left elbow to the left thigh, just above the knee, not on the knee. And press that knee open. This right leg, the quadricep is engaged to keep the knee here nice and safe and happy. And then focus on bringing the side of the pelvis, the left side of the pelvis, away from the left side of the thigh. So it might end up looking like your shoulders are moving. You're not worried about where your shoulders are. It's the pelvis that you're trying to pull away from the thigh. And you should feel that nice stretch. Kind of all over the place, but mostly on the inner left thigh. Taking a couple of breaths here. And then pushing those legs straight. Turn the right foot so that the toes are turned out, heel is pointing in. We'll come into horse stance. You might have to bring your feet in a little closer. I know I do. My hips are not so open this way. Drop your hips down to knee height. Come up to standing. Bring the hands so that on the inner thighs. And then press those knees wide. See if you can sink your hips down. Take your groins back, the hip creases back. You take the shoulders away from the ears. And then straighten that right arm and drop the right shoulder. Really pressing back onto the right knee. Come back up to center. Straighten the left arm, drop the left shoulder. Even turn and look over the right shoulder. Get in a nice twist in here. come back up to center. I'm going to switch my hands so the fingers are pointing to the back wall. Straighten that right arm. Twist, look up over the left. Come back to center. Straighten the left arm. And look over the right shoulder. And come back to center. Then bring the hands back down. Straighten those legs. Turn the toes out. The heels out so the toes are the feet are parallel. And then turn the right toes out. If you did shorten your stance, you might want to widen it again, or you might not, depending on how that left side felt, because we're going to move into the right side, bending the knee, bringing that arm so the elbow comes just above the knee, not on the knee. You never want to be pushing on the side of the knee. You don't want to be pushing on your knees in any direction. And then focusing on taking the right side of the pelvis away from the thigh. Make sure there's no arch in your back. You're not collapsing your low back, but you're lifting it, keeping it nice and full. This left leg, the quadricep is engaged, nice and strong, and you're pressing into the outer edge of that left foot, trying to lift the inner arch. The neck is long. You can be looking at the ground or slightly forward. One more breath here. And then straightening that leg, coming back to center, turning the right toes back in, and then we'll do horse stance once more. So turn the heels in, bend the knees, bring the hips nice and low, come up to standing. This time we'll take trident arms, goddess pose. See if you can press those knees back, tuck the tailbone, pull up on the low belly, and try to bring the shoulders above the hips. Press the knees back. Press into all the corners of the feet. And then straightening those legs, turning the toes in, bringing the hands to the heart, stepping the feet forward. And we're going to work on bhujapidasana, which is not a pose that I've done a lot of, so hopefully I can help people. I know in our class we haven't worked on it at all. So starting with the feet nice and wide at about shoulder distance, even outer shoulder distance. Bend your knees, coming down, working your shoulders in between the legs, maybe even coming up onto the toes of one foot and then the other foot to get the legs in front of the shoulders. Hands come down behind you so they're flat. Bend your arms to make a shelf for your legs. And then you can start to walk your feet together towards the center, hooking one foot over the other, and then start to straighten those legs out, lift the hips, lift the feet, gaze forward, breathe. And then release that. And coming back up. And then we're going to go to the wall, because I do like using the wall. And I guess I'll do it on this side. We're going to roll our mat up part way. So probably about 2/3 of the way for these regular kind of medium-sized mats. If you have a super thick mat, you might not need to roll it up as much. And then you're going to have the mat far enough away that you can sit your hips between yourself and the wall. You want the roll to be at your low back, and you want your hips and your butt to be on the floor when you lay down. So it looks like this. And you might need to adjust. You might need to change the amount of roll. You might need to move your mat forward or back. So my feet are on the wall, my hips, my butt is touching the floor, and the roll is at my low back. Then I'm going to walk my left foot up the wall, bring the right foot to hook just over the left knee, just like in a figure 4 stretch, and then slide that foot down. So my butt is coming off the floor, so I need to readjust, which could mean kind of wiggling forward or moving my foot up. And now I'm at just the right spot. My butt is on the floor, my low back is off the floor from the roll, my foot is on the wall, and my outer thigh is stretching very much. So this is outer thigh rather than inner thigh, but it's a nice counter stretch. It's a nice balancing action. And this is just a really great pose. Super passive, but very effective. So you're mostly passive, but this right leg is pretty active. So the foot is strongly flexed. The knee is reaching towards the wall. You could take your hand and really gently press And this is on the knee, but because of it being closed and bent, and this foot being strongly flexed and being super duper gentle with the hand, you can press a little bit on the knee or just below the knee, either on the thigh or on the calf. And you can stay here for a long time. We're not going to stay here too long for right now. We're going to switch. Right foot comes to the wall, left foot comes up. Foot is flexed. Hips come back down to the floor. And on this side, I'm noticing that I'm much tighter. So my foot is a lot higher, even just to get my butt to the floor. Flexing that foot, reaching the knee towards the wall, readjusting as I need to keep my butt on the floor. And then that stretch is way, for me, it's way up, almost at the attachment point for the IT band. Gently encouraging that left knee away. And breathing, always. And then after a few minutes, the intensity is changing here. It's not quite as much, so I'm going to try wiggling my foot down. And if I can keep my hips on the ground, which is challenging, I have to really work on pressing those hips down, but that's nice. It gives another place to be active here. And now they're just barely, my hips are just barely touching the ground, but I'm going to stay here for a little bit. And breathe, as always. We store a lot of tension, of emotion, of stuff in our hips. So lots of breath to help it release and flush out of the body. And then releasing that, now we're going to do one last one, bringing the feet so that they're wide distance, as if you're doing a squat, but you're squatting on the wall instead of on the floor. Hips are down. The thighs are in the same direction as the knees. So this is a good way to see if my leg is at this direction or at this angle and my foot is like this, then you can see that where that play is going to come in is probably going to be at the knee. It might be kind of somewhere in here, but our bones don't twist that much. It's mostly going to be at the knee, which is not good for our knees. And we always want to be cautious of our knees. So thighs, feet, same angle. So here you might be able to wiggle a bit closer. You might be able to bring your feet a bit wider and focus on pressing your feet to the wall so you can bring your knees out. Also lengthen your knees away from the body. And the hands can be resting gently on the knees, on the torso, or out in Shavasana, arms. Pressing into the big toe mounds to get the maximum leverage here. And then releasing that. You can use your hands to help your knees come back together. Get a few moments of legs at the wall, even though we're away from the wall. And then you can come up to sitting. And that's it for today. So come on up to class or practice this at home. Take longer. Those wall hip openers are fantastic. You can stay there, do it like a yin practice and stay there for 5 minutes each. And I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good week.